Hello everybody, this is Zaxter99. Welcome back to the Hero of Kendrickstone. We're going to go ahead and go through Chapter 7 in this video. And you'll remember in the last video I came to actually redeem myself. I was actually able to pick up a piece of important stone that was important for the great wizard. Isor, I believe is his name, something like that. And he lives up in the wizard's tower. And he needed that to see if he could craft or make a teleportation spell. So part of the payment for completing that quest for him was that I get to live in his castle, I get my own bed, I get food, and he also gave me as a reward a hunter's ring. I can hear better and louder and, more alert and quick and stuff like that. So it helps my reflexes and my vision and my hearing, I believe. So hopefully that'll help us out when we get to the end of this book, or the end of this game. So we're going to go ahead and start with Chapter 7, Dire Tidings, right after this. Alright everybody, welcome back. Chapter 7, Dire Tidings. Let's go ahead and jump in. You spend the next month watching the city die. Even as the world outside the walls burst with the robust greenery of spring, Kendrickstone withers within its stone bulwarks. The caravans that normally come every spring to rejuvenate the city are nowhere to be seen. The roads are too dangerous, and the bandits of the woods seem to be everywhere at once. Without trade from the outside, the city cannot grow enough food to feed itself, let alone maintain anything save the bare essentials of existence. The last of the shops close, and the alehouses and taverns are empty at night. Every day more houses lie abandoned as their inhabitants flee in a desperate bid to escape the spiraling deprivation. Every day the pulse of the city grows fainter. With every day, the great city's demise draws closer at hand. Wow, this looks pretty grim, huh? Hopefully we can save the city. I'm hoping. As soon as your wounds heal, Master Ison puts you to work. You take down and organize his notes and rearrange and assemble equipment, while the wizard himself does the specialized, highly delicate work of spellcasting. You are the one who must ensure he has all the spell components, notes, equipment, and required artifacts on hand for each casting. Most of your days are spent running around the tower as Master Ison inundates you with a constant stream of demands and questions. It doesn't take you long to pick up the basic concepts of what you're working with, both from the wizard's own hurried explanations and your observations of your master at work. Soon, the alien concepts that you are helping the court wizard work with become more and more familiar. However, the specifics of the court wizard's increasingly elaborate experiments remain opaque and arcane. All you know is that Master Ison's desk is increasingly cluttered with elaborate armatures of brass and iron and silver, all centered around one piece of stone you brought back. So the month continues, with Master Ison working feverishly and helping you in any way you can, while below you, the lights of the great city dim and die out one by one, never to be relit. Until one morning. You are woken to a knock on your door. It is Master Ison, of course. Nobody else lives in the tower. When you open up, you do not find the tired, haggard man you are used to seeing. Instead, Ison's beard is neatly trimmed, and his face is freshly washed and smelling of rose water. He wears a silken robe in the colors of the city of Kendrickstone. Only the dark circles under his eyes give testament to the long night he must have had. "Alexander," he says, wasting no time, "I need you in your best outfit to be ready to head into the city in 10 minutes. "Why?" you ask, puzzled and a little bit groggy. "What's going on?" The wizard meets your gaze, his eyes bloodshot from fatigue, but still intent. "The Duke has called me to a council meeting. He has ordered me to bring you." You've never seen the Duke private council chambers before. Even though you have spent nearly an entire year living in the city, You have never seen that inner sanctum where the ruler of the city makes his most important decisions. Honestly, you expected something bigger. After the tall, imposing arch of the keep's main entrance and the vaulted expanse of the Great Hall, the council chamber is simply a room, no bigger than the inside of a peasant's cottage. The only thing that gives away its significance are the guards at the two doors and the faint blue glow of protective wards along each wall. At the center is a small oaken table, with a handful of heavy, high-backed chairs around it. Already the places around the table are filled by 3 others. 2 of the other faces are familiar. Dame Mildred of Son of Mercy looks as comfortable in her ankle-length court gown as she does in her mail and helm. William of Halliford is dressed in a robe and mantle expensive enough to bankrupt most minor nobles. Ison of Coriolandus wears a Coriolandian garb, but what you suppose is his official uniform as court wizard. Last of all, there is, of course, the Duke of Kendrickstone himself. Leofric II, Duke of Kendrickstone, would have once been an immense man, tall and bull-shouldered. Even still, you can see the remnants of the mighty muscles with which once made his name a great hero. Now, though, he has taken all but the remnants. Duke Leofric is an old man, and his years and responsibilities have grayed his hair, winked his brow, and stooped his back. An assassin took one of his arms not 5 years ago, and nearly 40 years of rule seem to have taken much else besides. Still, the Duke is impressive. Not for his long-aged body, but for the power he still wields and the reputation he once forged alongside companions like Elaine of Son of Mercy. What do you think of him? I am honored to be in the presence of such a powerful man. The Duke did much good as a hero. I seek to follow his example. He was better off as an adventurer than a lord. Everything this old man has, I want? Okay, I will choose the second one. The Duke did much as a hero. I seek to follow his example. You keep your thoughts from your face as you approach the table. The guards step outside and close the doors behind them as you take your place. My friends, the Duke begins, his voice deep and resonant, even through the mustiness of age. You all know of our city's plight. For a year now, these bandits in black have plagued the people of our city. First as a mere nuisance, then as a major threat, and now as a danger to Kendrickstone's very existence. Our efforts to combat this scourge have been great. He spares Dame Mildred a meaningful glance. But not enough. Now, as our city stands on the brink of annihilation, they send us their demands. The Duke produces a scroll, tattered and stained, but still very much legible. This message was attached to an arrow shot from the woods. It reads thus: To His Grace, Duke Leofric of Kendrickstone, know that my forces have your city's very life within its hands. No trade, no supplies, and no help will come to Kendrickstone unless I will it. Open your gates and submit to me, and we may speak of your city's continued survival. Refuse this first and only offer, and you shall watch your people starve and your city crumble to nothing. Mylius, black-clad. Wow. It is Ison who speaks first. So, my predecessor has indeed returned to wreak his revenge. Dame Mildred nods. I knew I should have gutted the bastard when I had the chance, she snarls. I am loath to agree with the Knight of Kendrickstone, William of Halliford begins, in his customarily soothing tones, but I must concur. He turns to Mildred, his eyes alight. You should have gutted the bastard when you had the chance. The Duke leans forward, his expression defeated. We may have no choice but to accept these terms, as abhorrent as it may seem. Ison grits his teeth, and Dame Mildred's hand balls into a fist, so hard that her knuckles go white. Never! Not so long as any The Duke raises his hand in a calming gesture. "There is little food in the city. We shall perhaps last another," he turns to William, who nods slightly, "2 weeks before large parts of the city begin to starve." The Duke's voice grows stronger and steadier now. "As terrible as it may be to submit ourselves to Milius and his bandit army, I will not see my people starve to death in their homes, if that is the alternative." The room goes quiet as you all digest the Duke's words. To give up one of the greatest cities in the Concordat to a revenge mage and a bandit army, could you even consider it? Only if it will prevent mass suffering. If the Duke orders, so be it. Not a chance they'll destroy all I've gained here. Who cares as long as I make it out alive? Tough choice, huh? I'm going to say not a chance they'll destroy all I've gained here. Let's be a rebel. Let's go against the Duke. Surrendering to the bandits outside the walls might save some from starvation, but what guarantee is there that the bandits will leave you alone with your belongings, your weapons, and even your life? William of Halliford breaks the silence. "There must be another way, a third option," he says, a hint of urgency slipping into his voice. He has the most to lose. He derives all his wealth and power from the city's people. Duke Leofric nods. "That's why I've brought you here, my finest knight, my court wizard, the man who runs my markets from the shadows, and," he gestures at you, "the only adventurer who has not yet abandoned Kendrickstone." The old Duke looks at all 4 of you meaningfully. "We must put aside whatever differences we have, and find a third option." Dame Mildred nods back. "Then I think I speak for every knight in your service, your grace, when I say that we stand ready to carry out any plan." She glares sidelong at William, no matter who it comes from. The well-groomed man glares back. "I can say the same question for my organization. If it will save the city, my resources are at your disposal." Ison of Corlandis smiles then, the grin of a gambler with a winning hand. "Then, it is best I tell you I have something that can even the odds." "Yeah, teleportation, baby." "As I'm sure all of you must know by now," Ison begins, "I began following up with my predecessor's research when I took this post. Milius of Concordat, Milius Blackclad now, I suppose, had a theory that the following court had perfected some sort of teleportation magic." "Nonsense," interjects William of Halliford. "Teleportation is impossible." Ison shakes his head. "On the contrary, it is quite possible. According to my predecessor's notes, he concluded that the ruined stone circles in the forest outside the city are in fact teleportation rings. I believe Milius Cladglad is using those ruins to move his bandits from one side of the forest to the other instantly." The Duke nods. "Yes, I read your report." He turns to you now. "You say the bandit cap disappeared in a flash of light?" Before you can answer, Ison shakes his head. "Not disappeared. Transported to one of the other ruins. Before I knew this, I had been trying to recreate Milius's experiments on teleportation without resorting to the measures he took, but 2 things stymied me. One was my inability to recreate the material used in the flowering court to build the circles. The other was even more worrying." The wizard takes a breath and sighs. "You see, the teleportation process is not perfect. When a person's mind and body are torn from one part of the world and thrown into another, some parts of the spirit are lost. A person's mind is twisted, made cold, and numbered to compassion and gentleness. Eventually, the mind recovers. But if a person is subjected to such process repeatedly—" The Duke nods gravely. "Their mind remains twisted. If they get within the walls, they will show us no mercy." Ison nods gravely back. Yes. So, says Dame Mildred, her voice edged with growing frustration, how is any of this supposed to help even the odds? The court wizard raised a placating hand. Patience, Lady Knight, let me explain. When our young friend returned with his account of the bandit camp, I refocused my efforts. Now that I knew the bandits were using teleportation circles to move their camp, I worked to find a way to track when each circle was used. I believe I have succeeded. The Duke leans forward, his one hand gripping the arm of his chair. Are you saying? Ison nods. I believe I will be able to track the location of the bandit camp at will. Ooh. Naturally, Ison continues, I have a plan to use this to our advantage. Dame Mildred nods. I've got an idea too. Interesting, William of Halliford says. I too have a way in which we might use this to end the bandit threat. The Duke smiles for the first time since the meeting began. Good, good. I also have a plan. Something daring and risky, as no doubt all of your schemes are. Something I would have readily accepted in my youth. The old man begins deeply and shakes his head. But it is not we who must carry out these plans, I suspect. Once again the Duke's cold blue eyes settle on you. That job is for the young. The others at the table nod. Duke Leofork's gaze does not waver. Then, if it is our young adventurer who must be the tip of the spear, it would only be fitting for his to hear each plan and choose which approach to take. You find yourself breathing just a little quicker. In short, the Duke is giving you the responsibility of not just choosing, but carrying out the plan that might save or doom the city. No pressure. Oh, wow. Wow, this is good, huh? All right. The choices are, I would like to hear Dame Mildred's plan. What is the Master Ison's idea? What is William of Halliford's plan? And I want to hear about your plan, Your Grace. I am going to ask the Duke what his plan is first, because he was once a young warrior hero himself. So I want to see what he has to say first. The Duke nods and turns to the court wizard. Master Ison, when the magic circle is activated, it takes every person in that circle elsewhere, doesn't it? Ison nods. Everyone and everything, Your Grace. Duke Leofork strokes his chin. That would mean that if we were to get a force within the circle, they would be unable to escape from it, even if that force were, say, a dozen knights, correct? The wizard nods again. That is so, Your Grace. The problem is getting those knights close enough without being detected by sentries or guards. If our soldiers are detected at a distance, Mylius Blackclad will be able to get his bandits away before they can get close. The Duke nods. Then it seems that the key would be to convince the sentries that nothing is amiss until it's too late. So I say, how would I fool the bandit sentries, Your Grace? What happens afterwards? My apologies, Your Grace. I'd like to hear the other plans. What happens afterwards? The bandit sentries. It's going to be one of these two. How would I fool the bandit sentries? The old man shrugs. You are young and clever, are you not? Surely you will find a way to do the job. Ison shakes his head. Perhaps you ask too much of him. Your Grace, surely... Adventurers must rise to any challenge if they are to become heroes, the Duke cuts in, his voice loud and clear. He turns to you. If you do not think it can be done, then by all means choose some other approach. But if you can pull it off, it will be a feat to be spoken of, I assure you. What happens afterwards? The Duke smiles. After you get a dozen heavily armed knights into the midst of these bandits, you mean? Violence, I think, Dame Mildred interjects. A great deal of violence, in a very short span of time. The knight smiles rather viciously. The Duke gives her a look. We'll arrest the ones that survive, of course, she adds sheepishly. My apologies, Your Grace, but I'd like to hear the other plans, so I guess I have to hear the other plans. Okay. I didn't think I would have to choose that. I figured I could just go with this. Alright, it'll be good to hear everybody's plans, I guess. I would like to hear Master Ice's plan, since I'm working for him. The Duke nods graciously. Of course. Who shall we hear next? Ison turns to you. My plan is very simple. It will, however, require at least a basic knowledge of magic. You nod. I know a bit of magic. What's the plan? Ison's eyes widen, just a little. Do you now? We must hope that little bit will prove to be enough. The wizard continues. Since we know where the bandits are at any time, we also shall know where they are not. With that in mind, I propose we go to one of the empty magic circles and try to disrupt its enchantments. Since all 4 circles are linked, I suspect that disabling one will disable the others. With this done, the bandits will be unable to escape an attack by our knights. Dame Mildred leans forward, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. I'm sensing a catch here, Master Wizard. Ison nods. Well, yes, there is a problem. Namely the fact that nobody has ever tried to disrupt a Flowering Court enchantment before. Wait, what? The Duke looks at the wizard quizzically. Do you think it can be done? Ison looks back, his eyes intent. I know it can be done. The records kept by previous court wizards tell of a tomb that survived the disappearance of the Flowering Court, one which offers clues to dispelling its magic. The records say it was stored in a vault deep under this very keep. William of Halliford nods. I've heard of it. The Book of Mad Whispers. The what? Do I want to know why the book is called that? How do I get this book? I'm going to say, how do I get this book? The Duke turns to you. It is, he hesitates for a moment, then begins again. The book was ordered sealed deep under the keep on the orders of my great-grandmother, the reigning duchess at the time. 4 guards watch its entrance at all times. Beyond, there is a passage full of traps and a locked door leading to the book itself. The old man holds up a thin silver chain hanging around his neck. A small silver key dangles from it. I can give you the key to the doors, but I know not where the traps are hidden. Anyone who once did is long dead. So you'll have to dodge a hallway full of traps to get to the damn thing, and then dodge the same traps to get out. And nobody knows where the traps are. Great. Do I want to know why the book is called that? Let's ask that. William of Halliford clears his throat. Well, as far as I know, apparently the book has a mind of its own and is capable of speaking directly to the owner's mind. It can subtly influence an owner's actions and render them unstable. Isa nods. It drives its owners insane. That's why it's been locked in a heavily guarded booby-trap vault for the past 120 years. Oh, lovely. Let's hear some other plans. Let's go with Dame Mildred next. The knight nods and leans forward. Normally, in a situation like this, when we know where the enemy is, we would muster the knights and hit the bandits with everything we've got. William of Halliford casts a sidelong glance at the knight. So, what's stopping you? Surely the prowess of the much-vaunted Knights of Kendrickstone would prove much more sufficient to deal with a handful of bandits. Dame Mildred nods. It would, you know it. I know it. The Milius Blackclad knows it, which is the problem. If he sees all our knights coming at him, he'll just move his camp to another circle, and it will take us a day to follow him. The knight shakes her head. I think we should split up the knights into 3 groups. 1 to each of the magic circles not currently holding the bandit camp. If the bandits try to escape to the other circle, we'll have knights waiting for them. To the camp itself, we'll send a force that Milius won't consider a threat. Ison leans forward. You mean someone who was all but unknown at the time of my predecessor exile, like... Dame Mildred turns towards you. Yes, absolutely. Insanity! William of Halliford exclaims. You expect the boy to attack the bandit camp? He'll be cut down in a heartbeat. Dame Mildred shakes her head. Not if he moves quickly, fights well, and doesn't let the bandits use their numbers against him. Then, he can get in, slay Mylius the Black quickly, and get out. The knight turns to the Duke. There is one other thing. For this plan to work, our chosen agent must have every advantage. Your Grace, I request permission to allow this adventurer to take with his the sword of Kendrick, Giant Slayer. The Duke hisses in surprise, but after a long pause, he nods approval. If this adventurer is found worthy by the wards that guard the blade, then he has my permission. Kendrick Giant Slayer's sword? Yeah, let's find out what's all about that. Dame Mildred shakes her head. No, the sword of Kendrick Giant Slayer, she replies with a near reverent tone. The very same blade that killed the stone giant of Colmere. You know that tale, almost everyone does, of how Kendrick Giant Slayer slew a giant made of blood-red stone back in the first great age of heroes over 2 centuries ago. Legend has it that he defeated the stone giant with a sword whose blade shone like the sun and could cut steel like water. But that sword is nothing but a legend, surely. I can imagine what you're thinking, my boy, the Duke says. I can assure you, the sword is very real, buried with the Giant Slayer himself in a tomb outside the city. Powerful magics protect the sword, but if you can get past the wards... The talk of the magical defenses gets the court wizard's attention. What kind of wards exactly? The Duke shakes his head. I have not seen the tomb myself, but legends speak of stone walls that shift like sand, and powerful guardian spirits. You're not sure you like the sound of that. A centuries-old tomb guarded by who knows what? But if you can get past... A magic sword. A genuine magic sword once wielded by a great hero. If anything could get you through the bandit camp alive, it is that. Plan sounds dangerous. No, I'm going to say I want to hear the other plans. The Duke nods. Very well. Who would you like to hear next? Well, there's only one plan left, so I look at William of Halliford. My plan is rather simple, really, the well-groomed man explains, as he plucks a gold piece from his belt and begins bouncing it across his knuckles. The mage is the one leading the bandits, and he's the only one with the ability to operate the magic circles. We know where he is, so all our young compatriot has to do is get into the camp and find Mylius Blackclad. Dame Mildred's eyes narrow. Then what? William of Halliford snorts in depression. Come now, Lady Knight. You know as well as I do what happens next. It starts with S and ends with slitting his throat. That's murder, the knight growls. So, if you cut a foe's throat, it's murder. But if you stab him in the front, as your knights train every day to do, it's honorable combat, William responds. Dame Mildred quickly changes the subject. Fine. How does our assassin get in, then? The well-groomed man smiles. He'll need a disguise, and maybe a password, too, to get past the sentries. All right, can we make our own bandit disguise? How exactly am I going to get a disguise and password? Could I make do without them? Let's say, can we make our own? Dame Mildred nods. That would be safest, surely. We could assemble a likely outfit with the city's resources. William of Halliford shakes his head and frowns. It isn't quite that simple. Dyeing cloth black, true black as these bandit outfits are, is a very complicated process. He continues as if going down a list, ticking off fingers one by one. First, the cloth must be dyed blue, using a dye that only comes from deep within the iron marches. Then that dye must set, and then the cloth must be dyed again. This must continue for as long as fortnight. After that, the cloth must be mordanted, bathed in a vat full of agents so pungent they must be dried in the open for a week before they cease to smell like cesp. The merchant stops himself, almost as if he had spoken a few words too many. The knight shakes her head. If it takes so much time and effort to dye cloth black, then why do the bandits all have black garb? William shrugs. Magic, I suppose. He turns to Ison hopefully. I don't suppose you know... The court wizard shakes his head. It is, regrettably, not a spell known to me. So that's that then. Well, I don't think I like his plan if I'm gonna have to... How can I make without them? How exactly am I going to get... Let's say that. William of Halliford shrugs. We know where the bandit camp is for the moment. Might you not ambush one of the patrols and sentries? You could, but it would involve getting awfully close to the main bandit camp. I'm sure you'll think of something, the crime lord concludes. You're clever enough. Could I make do without them? William of Halliford pauses in thought for a moment, the gold coin still bouncing atop his knuckles. I suppose you could, he finally says. It would be very difficult, of course. He shrugs. You might succeed, but your chances will be much better with the disguise and the bandit's password. I'm ready to choose a plan, am I? All right, you think it over. Each plan has its own strengths and weaknesses and requires its own set of skills and abilities. Each plan carries with it a colossal risk. You know you must choose carefully and pick the course of action you are best suited to carry out. Failure is not an option. In the end, you decide to go with... Wow. Yeah, this is definitely a mission I do not want to fail. Wow. Very, very interesting. I think I like the knight's plan, to be honest, of going for that great sword. So I think I'm going to choose that. I've just got to get past a tomb and that sounds interesting. I think I'm going to choose that one just because I want to wield that great mighty sword. So let's go with that. Dame Mildred's plan has the best chance of succeeding, you say finally. Duke Leofric nods. Very well, so be it, he intones with a note of finality. I shall have a map showing the way to the tomb of Kendrick Giant Slayer sent to you by tomorrow morning. I suggest you take the day to prepare yourself. One by one, the old man looks to each of you at the table. Today we have made decisions that may doom or save our city. Let us hope they have been the right ones. This council meeting is dismissed. The guards open the doors, flooding the dark chamber with light of the outside world. Over the next few minutes, each of you stands up and makes your way out of the council room. You spend the rest of the day in preparation. You test your weapons, and then clean them, and then test and clean them again. You look over the contents of your pack, and then you do it all again. You won't be able to afford failure, which means you can't afford to have your equipment fail you. By the time you are done, it is already dark and your stomach is rumbling. You eat a quick meal and go to bed. You go to bed thinking of your year in Kendrickstone. You think of the failures that have riddled your adventuring career so far, the many times you have come up short in the past year. You think of your reputation, or rather, your lack thereof. Even after a year, few know your name. Maybe you'll be able to change all that. You think of your near-empty belt pouch. Your career as an adventurer has left you destitute. You think of all the different skills you've picked up over the past year. Maybe one of them will prove to be the thing that gets you through this final challenge alive. You think of all of these things, and you find yourself sleep-troubled. Your uncertainties keeping you awake on the eve of the biggest challenge you've ever faced. You toss and turn, hoping desperately that the approaching sunrise will not be your last. Wow, so quite a chapter there, people. Looks like we have a final battle here. Chapter 8 looks like this might be the last chapter in this book, or in this virtual novel, The Hero of Kendrickstone. Pretty good so far. What do you guys think? Be sure you put it in the comments below before you listen or read Chapter 8. Do you think I've made the right choice going after that great sword? I don't know if it's the best choice or not, but it sounds like it might have the best chance of success, especially if we can get our hands on it. The one thing we know we can't do is we cannot afford to fail. I have read some of the forum posts on this game, and I do know that a few people have mentioned that death is something that can happen in this book. So I very well could die in this battle. The choices here are getting to be very important as we go into this final chapter. Leave it down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. Did I make the right choice? Do you think I'll prevail? Or do you think I will be vanquished? Let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you're enjoying this book, this novel, this video. And you can do that by giving me a thumbs up. That definitely lets me know you guys appreciate the content that I'm reading aloud for you and uploading to YouTube. Take care, everybody. We'll see you for the next video in Chapter 8 soon. Have a good day.